we're all good.
Okay, so I will officially call this meeting to order. The special city council meeting for Monday, March 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you roll call, please?
Councilmember Hurtado,
Here.
Councilmember Palomar,
Here.
Councilmember Dix,
Here.
Councilmember North,
Here.
Mayor Ruman.
And I'm here. Thank you everyone for joining us on this teleconference. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Next up is public comment. Any person may directly address the council at this time on any item not on the agenda, and that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this council. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Is there anybody on from the public that would like to make a comment at this time?
I would. This is Heather Dunn.
Okay, hi Heather.
Hello. So I would like to bring up, I know that action can't be taken on it today, but I would like to request that the city council revisit the idea of allowing backyard chickens. I think, we're in different times right now, and I think that's something that should be looked at as a way for families to be able to help provide for their own. Even in the police department press release that just went out regarding the arrest of the people who were stealing from some of our local stores, it stated that the stores have told the police department that since we're a smaller community, we're kind of on the lower priority end of deliveries when it comes to the stores, and that they're prioritizing larger populated areas. And so I think one of the ways that we can use as a way to help provide for our families, I would like to revisit that and have the staff look at bringing that up again. Obviously, with regulations, I don't expect allowing a whole flock in the backyard, and don't want roosters waking me up at the crack of dawn either. But I know that I've seen as people discussing with recent events are questioning why we aren't allowed to have backyard chickens, and would hope that I know there wasn't much support last time, but hopefully now there would be that support, and those people that are supporting it would actually come forward. And so I would like to ask that the council revisit that.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
I don't know that I have a whole 5 minutes on talking about chickens. I think that especially since it's been an issue that's been brought up before, but I know that this is one of those things that's being brought to light when we're having the shortages in stores and everything else. I know in my family, we've got 3 out of 4 of us that are on more of that high risk list, and we would like to avoid going out as much as possible. Having backyard chickens would be one way for us to be able to do that and still feed my family. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, public comment? Okay, hearing none, I should say. I will close the public comment at this time. Next up will be item 3.1, which is a regular calendar. This will be to adopt resolution 2020-022, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Kingsburg proclaiming the existence or threatened existence of a local emergency, which is the COVID-19. We have a presentation by our City Manager, Alexander Henderson.
Yes, Mayor Roman, members of council, good evening. This is a continuation of our discussion that we started last Wednesday evening, specifically related to the declaration of a local emergency. If you'll recall, there has been a presidential or a federal emergency declared, state emergency, and then also Fresno County local emergency has been declared. One of the tenets of the adopted emergency operations plan is that the city manager is designated as the director of emergency services. One of the things that he is or that person is able to do is then declare a local emergency if there is a known threat or the existence or threatened existence of a local emergency. And so after our discussion last Wednesday, made that declaration. The city's municipal code then requires the city council to ratify that emergency or at least consider it within 7 days, which is the purpose for this special meeting. If the council does not ratify or proclaim or concur with that emergency, then it dies. So we're here tonight asking you to ratify a request from the Director of Emergency Services and proclaim the existence of a threatened existence of a local emergency, which would be done through adopting Resolution 2020-022, a resolution of the City of Kingsburg proclaiming the existence or threatened existence of a local emergency, in this case COVID-19. So that concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the council?
Yeah, I have some questions. Go ahead. You can go ahead.
No,
first.
go ahead. My question really was, you're going to be the acting director of emergency services, and then for the record, can you say who's on the Kingsburg Disaster Council?
Yeah, give me just a moment here.
I'm looking it up. 2.40.030.
Right.
And that way the public understands who serves on this council.
So the Disaster Council shall consist of the following. The mayor is the chairperson, the director of emergency services, vice chairperson, it's the city manager, the assistant director of emergency services. Currently, no one is appointed at this time. And then chiefs of emergency services would be obviously Police Chief Davey and Chief Perkins. I would suspect that the assistant director would probably be Chief Perkins, based upon his, he's actually the one that helps execute the emergency operations plan, but that actual declaration wouldn't be made until after you guys adopt the resolution this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dix, you have some questions?
No, I just want to make it clear, I guess under 2.40.060, just so we all understand, I think it's saying on section F, how much does this disaster council now replace the city council in making decisions, during this local emergency? Because I think under that, it's all mostly just appointments.
Is now in the conference.
Until a local emergency is declared, and then this council will be making and issuing rules and regulations. I don't know that that's all that different than from what they would normally do, but where are the limitations on, we're delegating authority with this, action. I just want to know the limitations of that, and what we're actually giving them the ability to do. Is it enough? Is it, we've never been here before, so just like to understand that a little bit more.
So I think the specifics of that are, so you referenced it correctly, so under 2.40.060 sub F, there are 5 categories, so I'll just read those. What it basically says is that the director of the state, I'll just read the whole thing. In the event of a proclamation of a local emergency, as herein provided, the proclamation of a state of emergency by the governor, or the director of the state office of emergency services, or the existence of a state of war emergency, the director is hereby empowered to make and issue rules and regulations on matters reasonably related to the protection of life and property as affected by such emergency, provided, however, such rules and regulations must be confirmed by the earliest practicable time by the city council. And just to reiterate, the director, so these are conferring powers to the director under the emergency operations plan, which is the city manager. Number 2, to obtain vital supplies, equipment, and such other properties found lacking needed for protection of life and property, and to bind the city for the fair value thereof, and if required, immediately to commandeer the same for public use. To require emergency services of any city officer or employee, and in the event of proclamation of a state of emergency in the county in which the city is located, or the existence of a state of war emergency, to command the aid of as many citizens of this community as he or she deems necessary in the execution of his or her duties. Such person shall be entitled to all privileges, benefits, and immunities as are provided by state law for registered disaster service workers, to requisition necessary personnel or material of any city, department, or agency. Number 5, to execute all his or her ordinary powers of his or her day-to-day office, all the special powers conferred upon him or her by this chapter or by resolution or emergency plan pursuant hereto adopted by the city council, all powers conferred upon him or her by any statute, by any agreement approved by the city council, and other lawful authority. So I think the last one is probably the most important. So the disaster council and the language, from the municipal code that we're referencing is from September of 1972. The emergency operations plan was adopted in very late 2010. And so that's probably the more relative document for us to be reviewing with regards to powers conferred and guidelines given for this sort of state of emergency. It's pretty specific in the emergency operations plan that the city council still remains the policy-making body, and any recommendations with regards to policy, for the extent practical are to be approved by the city council. And obviously, Mike, if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
The only thing would be that the powers of the disaster council are referenced in section 2.40.040, and that states that it shall be the duty of the Kingsburg Disaster Council, and that is hereby empowered to develop and recommend for adoption by the city council emergency and mutual aid plans and agreements and such ordinances and resolutions and rules and regulations as are necessary to implement such agreements. So again, as Alex pointed out, with regards to the powers of the director of emergency services under 2.40.060, the powers and duties of the disaster council are in the form of developing and making recommendations for adoption by the city council of various emergency mutual aid plans. So again, these issues would be coming as recommendations from the director or from the disaster council to the city council for purposes of review and adoption.
Does it make sense considering, the type of threat we're facing here to maybe name that assistant director of emergency services? You're saying that's going to be fire chief?
Correct.
And what about, later on down the line it talks about exception of the office of director of emergency services that can be decided on later. Or do we have that defined at this time?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there, Sherman.
Under G, it talks about the succession plan for director of emergency services, so I'm wondering, is that defined yet, or is that to be defined?
So
I think that's important, considering how quickly this, some of the people that are falling ill to this.
yes, so the emergency operations plan spells out the line of succession pretty succinctly, so I'll just read that if I can.
Sure.
The city manager is designated as the director of emergency services. The assistant director of emergency services is appointed by the director, as well as the successor to the position of director of emergency services. Should the director be unavailable or unable to serve, the positions listed below in order shall act as the director of emergency services. The individual who serves as acting director shall have the authority and powers of the director and will serve until the director is again able to serve or until a successor has been appointed by the city council. So just assuming there was no appointments made, the first alternate is the assistant city manager, which is not someone in that position currently. The second alternate is the police chief, and the third alternate is the fire chief. So it spells out 3 alternates, assuming there are no appointments that have been made, but that would not be the intended case in this scenario.
Okay.
Any other questions from council members? I'll open it up for public comment. All right, I'll open up for public comment and we'll come back to council for more discussion. So I'll open it up at this time to the public if anybody would like to make a comment at this time. Okay.
Hello, this is Dave Krinkball, West Star, and I just have to commend you guys and everything that you're doing to take action. And we all are in some very unusual and tough times, but we appreciate the leadership going on there in Kingsburg, and anything we can do to help, please reach out to us.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, then I will close the public comment and bring it back to council for more discussion. If there's any more discussion, or if anybody wants to make a motion at this time. Can I get a motion?
I make
Yeah.
the assumption.
There you go, everyone.
I wasn't ready to talk, I was ready to motion. I, Laura North, make that first motion. I, Councilmember Hurtado, second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, okay, the motion carries. Moving on to item 4, city manager's report.
Yeah, that was the adopted resolution, yeah. Yes, just a couple of quick updates, related to the same subject, but just following up from some requests at our last meeting. We did contact all of the grocery stores in town. Save Mart is doing senior-specific hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the mornings. They do offer some delivery service. It's through Instacart with a fee. And so I think that's available for some of the other ones potentially as well. The other grocery stores in town, at least, again, this was late last week, were not offering senior-specific services at that time. We created a running list for local businesses that are still open in some capacity, so whether that be restaurants that are offering delivery or takeout, or if they are, potentially retail that have an online component. So we're continuing to update that every day, and that's available on the website in a couple of different locations.
Michelle Roman.
Did you get kicked off, Michelle?
Has left the conference.
Are you guys still there?
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
here.
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
There was some general discussion last.
Is now in the conference.
You back, Michelle?
Sorry. Yeah, so I got disconnected. I went to move my phone.
No worries. I was just talking about the business list that we've created that's on the website. There was some questions last time about eviction relief, both for residents and for commercial. I've been talking with other city managers, and I think LA is looking at doing something right now, but there's not a lot of examples out there of existing legislation that I've seen, but continuing to look at that, if that's something that the council wishes to pursue further. One thing that's sort of been a little bit of an anomaly is that our calls for service, ambulance calls have been down about 50%. So we're surprised to see that, see how long that continues. Some of the things just, to start thinking about a little bit, obviously we want to get this, we certainly want to stop the spread, but some of the things that we're starting to look at are, and some of these things we won't know for a little while, but just the potential revenue impacts. Sales tax, we've already seen building permits slow. Obviously, any sort of recreation user fees for parks, after school rec, things like that, those are canceled right now. We're not sure if there'll be a decline in water or garbage related payments for those who can't pay. Suspect that there'll be lower transient occupancy fees from hotel stays. It was reported that PERS lost roughly $69 billion with the latest stock market losses, and so those total losses won't be totally known until July of this year, and then we really start paying on them the following July of 2021, and they're phased in. But obviously, the majority, as we talked about previously, the majority of PERS funding is based upon return on investment in the stock market. So if those returns are lower, then the obligations on local governments become higher. So just some things that we're sort of starting to track, and obviously if sales tax is impacted, then that will have an impact too on our Measuree. So things that we'll be keeping an eye on, but that probably won't bear themselves out at least for a few more months, potentially even into the new fiscal year, just because of the way that a lot of our revenues come in. So,
Alex,
yes.
this is Councilmember Diggs. Can we, I know that there's other things that are going on, but I think there's some reduction because of activity. I was wondering if Alma could do an analysis, some type of estimate of that exact thing, the TOT reduction potential, the fact that gas prices are dropping. That's a big part of our sales tax.
Right.
Just to get an idea of those numbers. so
Yes.
that we can start planning for that impact gonna happen.
Yes, we'll do that. We've, for all of our sales tax related items, I've reached out to our third-party consultant already to see, when they usually provide us reports, they had provided, sort of a recession scenario. So we're having them hopefully update, those numbers to reflect whether or not even those recession, scenarios would be accurate for us, but yes, we'll work on that as well as the ones that aren't sales tax related.
This is Councilmember North, and I have a question.
Sure.
The city employees that are not working right now, are they still getting paid?
So the only employees that are not working right now are part-time employees.
Rec?
Yes, rec, our part-time hourly employees, and they are not being paid. They have sick leave that they are able to utilize. So if they had sick leave that they've elected to use, then they're being paid through that. The difficult part with that specific program is that while we could pay them through the remainder of this month, that's essentially a cost-neutral program, and it's based upon fees for the program that we're not anticipating collecting in April and May. All of the city employees are still working. The senior center employees have been working too, even though we're not serving meals. They've continued to work to help deliver meals to the seniors that we have at their homes.
Is there a way to repurpose those employees for something else, considering there's probably more senior needs in town?
I'd have to take a look at that and see if there was something that at this time they could possibly be utilized for.
Going back to the question that I brought up at the last meeting about the evictions for businesses in town,
Yes.
whether they rent or lease, I need to ask the question just now if that's something you wanted to see us pursue further. I'm sure as we keep going, we're going to see more cities pass something that supports this. So I definitely like to see us look at that. I think it's really important for our businesses to know that that would be something that they have, since they don't have all the income coming in right now. Paying rent is going to be really difficult for them. So if that's something that we can pass, I think it's really important that supports our businesses.
I'm gonna take a different perspective on that. I think that it's a little difficult to get involved in that private contract and decide who's gonna be, because if you're not a landlord thinking about rent reduction right now to make sure you keep your tenant, you're probably not paying attention to what's going on. And I'd rather leave it up to the individual to decide how to deal with that than the council to specifically say, you don't have to pay this rent, you don't have to, you don't have to meet in the middle or figure it out. I mean, I think it's definitely something that landlords have to think about if they want to keep tenants in their buildings, but there's so many different different relationships out there. Could be a good relationship with a tenant or a bad relationship with a tenant. I think when you say no evictions, that translates to no rent whatsoever for tenants.
Well, it's not that they don't, pay the rent, because obviously, with the other things as well that have been passed already, but it's saying that you just can't be evicted during this time. If they're, behind on rent and everything else, that's, obviously, they're going to have to pay rent. And even if you say this month they're not paying rent, that means next month they'd have to double up. So we're not alleviating the rent. What we're just saying is you just can't be evicted during this time. That's all.
Yeah, that's very important to note too, because it's not eliminating that completely.
Right.
So I get what you're saying.
And I understand, from a landlord perspective, that's very difficult. And some people, like you said, are already reducing rent and everything, so they want to keep their tenants. I'm just concerned as we look forward down the road here, next few months, we may lose a lot of businesses because of that. But if they can at least not worry about rent right now and get back on their feet, and then, pay back the back rent as well, it's just they're gonna need that time. That's all. It's just saying that they just can't be evicted, not that they're, excused of the rent. That's all.
Yeah, I get it completely. They're deferring rent. I just think that is a complicated issue that, they're making this decision right now, about, thinking about the impact on landlords. I mean, so no eviction to me translates to tenants as no payment. And we're not unburdening landlords at the same time. And I think that is not the place of the city council to decide that.
Well, it's already passed right now for homes. That's under the executive order. So it's really, I don't see it any different, right?
My understanding is it's just up to the city to determine that. But Alex could advise on that.
It's
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I think there's two different ones. So the president had provided some relief, but I believe that's only related to federal, to mortgages that are FHA
Right.
loans. The governor's executive order essentially gave local jurisdictions the ability to come up with specific language. I don't believe that he provided any specific relief in his order.
Yeah, he's kind of leaving it up to the local municipalities to make those decisions for their own residents.
Right.
So.
This is Mike. The other thing.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, this is Mike. The other issue, though, we can take a look at that, but the other issue too is the Fresno County Superior Court has severely limited access to the court from the standpoint of the types of actions that can be brought. And in their short list of those things that can be done, at least at this point in time, it does not really include any type of civil actions whatsoever.
And that's really my point, is that the Fresno County Sheriff is not going to come evict people right now. But tenants are going to have, and I'm speaking mostly of the commercial side. I think the residential side, I understand that one more, but on the commercial side, I'll give you a scenario, is that you have a tenant that is probably not, it wouldn't have mattered anyways, that, whether or not we have this economic downturn, and now we've prevented them from being removed from that building. We don't know if this will last 6 months, and a landlord has to give up the ability of maybe somebody, maybe the hospital wants to rent space, or the government wants to rent space, and that landlord could, collect rent during that time, and this tenant is now exonerated from, making due or making any type of payment to the landlord, but occupying that space. And I do believe too, many leases in town include things like utility bills and, variable costs, because they're not sophisticated leases here in town necessarily, and that could be burdening that landlord with other significant recurring costs that are not controllable. So that's my point, is that it's very complex. I don't think it's something we want to get in the middle of and say, we're gonna decide who wins or loses here. Everybody is gonna be suffering because of what's happening right now.
This is Councilmember North, and I think that since we just really started this shelter in place and retail stores are having to close, it's so new that we don't know much about what the future holds. And maybe this is a discussion that we need to hold off for a couple weeks to have and then kind of reevaluate.
I would agree.
And I'm fine with that. I just wanted to know if others, would like to look at something like this. I know, LA did something today. I believe it was for the homeowners, though. They passed something. So just something to look at, and I'm fine with, waiting to see, how things are going, and I'm fine with that.
And I know too that I heard some talk about, even on the landlord multifamily side, they're gonna delay, the landlord payment, which I think is, they're asking the landlord to, a lot of feedback right now. If they're asking the landlord to, defer their collection of rent, I mean, it needs to kind of pass down to the landlord as well in some respect.
Can I ask if anybody, if you're not speaking, just put your phones on mute during this time? That way we don't get all the feedback. Thank you. Anything else, Alex, with the city manager's report?
Just one other item it's sort of become more regular, kind of since the governor's shelter-in-place announcement, and really ramped up, I think, over the weekend, and certainly today back in the office, and just so kind of everyone is on the same page with regards to local enforcement. So the governor's order right now is asking for voluntary compliance with regards to social distancing. So we're certainly promoting that. We got a lot of calls over the weekend about the swap meet, and we had a lot of questions certainly about folks utilizing the playgrounds or going to parks. So again, right now, from an enforcement standpoint, we're asking people to take the precautions that are being provided by the public health experts. I think when police officers, if they are making contact, they're offering that same input. But until the governor, or if the governor goes to some sort of more mandated enforcement, that's been our approach at the local level as well. And so I think that part of the issue is that it's kind of it's obviously new and somewhat confusing. Not everybody's sure exactly what essential services are, and so there's information on the website, but then we'll also continue to try and put that out as part of our regular communications as well. But if there are questions about that, or that you guys are getting about sort of how we're handling some of those situations, I just wanted to bring that up.
This is Councilmember North, and I had talked to Alex earlier, or sent him an email. I did have some citizens ask about the park because they were concerned watching multiple children playing on the play equipment, and information that we're getting is that this virus can stay on plastic for like 3 or more days. And they had let me know that in other communities, they were actually putting like police tape around the play structures just to discourage playing on it. And that's something that I had asked Alex if it was something that we were doing or we were thinking of doing.
Yeah, and so we've had lots of internal conversations about sort of the parks. We're obviously not doing reservations anymore for gatherings. We've actually closed the restrooms at the parks. We've put up signs about, you know, proper hygiene, at both in the restrooms, but then also on the playgrounds, asking folks to wash their hands before and after. We've taken some steps to wipe down equipment periodically, but it's just not feasible for us to be out there, even probably every day, wiping down every playground surface that we have. So if there's a desire, I think when we're talking about, closing public facilities, obviously would want input from the council. If there's a desire to, close the playgrounds, sort of similar to what Councilmember North is referencing. I guess I'd be looking for direction on that from the council since we're talking about it.
This is Councilmember Diggs. I've noticed the same thing. Now the park that we go to is the church park. We're not letting our kids play on the play set, but I do see there'll be a couple families down there and their kids are playing on the play set. I don't know that there's anything that we can do about that, but I think the points are absolutely valid. Everything is saying that a lot of the transmission is happening from high touch, type objects, handles, and if we'll close the bathrooms, I don't know how we expect somebody to wash their hands before and after they play on the play set. I don't know that there'd be hygiene practiced that well. So I don't know that putting up police tape is going to deter people. I mean, I can imagine a lot of police tape is going to be ripped down, but I guess it's better than nothing.
How do the other council members feel about?
This is Councilmember Hurtado. I agree. I went out yesterday on like a walk, and there were tons and tons of kids here at the park across the street, and all touching. And I had that same idea, but I don't know. I didn't really think of it. So thank you, Councilmember North, for bringing this up. I agree with Sherman about the police tape. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. But I do think it is a good idea to defer people, so just not, be in the high touch areas for sure.
And Alex, don't we have some of that orange, like fencing, like plastic fencing that could be put around it?
Possibly. I don't know how much we have to go around all of the different playgrounds, but yeah, certainly if that's the direction of council, then I'll work tomorrow with Adam and Public Works Department. We can do barricades and different things. We can put up different signage. We can figure something out.
Yeah, this is Councilmember Powell. This is Councilmember Powell. Yeah, okay, yeah. I just had I agree, I feel that there's a lot of people and families that aren't taking this serious enough, COVID-19, and, I heard there was three people today in Dinuba that came down with it. 3 more, they said Tulare County, but I was informed it was in Dinuba, and, like I said, there's just a lot of people that aren't taking this serious, and I think that's a good idea, unfortunately, I know that it's hard right now, people have getting bored, staying home and stuff, but, I heard a 7-month-old baby has caught it now, somewhere in one of the states, and I think it's a good thing for us to, look at that, and maybe putting up tape or, the orange fencing around the playground, unfortunately, but yeah, it's a valid point, very valid point.
Yes, Fresno County today has 7 new cases. So it's definitely it's ramping up. Okay, so Alex, do you have direction then?
I do, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on your city manager's report?
Nope, that's all for me.
I know Jolene has worked really hard putting together that list and updating the list of all the businesses that are currently open, so I really appreciate her putting that together. I know it's on the website now, updated, and I'll be sharing it on the social media like I did previously as well. I know everyone appreciates knowing what is open, and the more that we can support our local businesses, the better. we've asked of them for many years to support different leagues and schools and things, and so now this is our time to give back to them and help them as much as we can as well. So more that we can do that, I think the better, for sure. So thank you, Jolene, for putting that list together. It's been updated.
And Michelle,
Okay,
you said that's on the city website?
Yes, it is.
Okay, the updated one. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, she already put it up there. Okay, any other business that may come properly before the city council? All right, well, I just
Yeah,
want to thank
Councilman-
everybody. Oh, go
Well,
ahead.
I have
Go ahead.
one for Michelle.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Palomar, I just have a question about, I have a feeling that we might be going into a recession, for our nation, and I just have a question for Alex or for us about, we're gonna defer the water, the water shutoffs, and I'm just concerned for our citizens, people are out of work and how long some people may not pay their water bills. Are we gonna have a policy on, say this COVID-19 thing lasts for several months, 4, 5, 6 months, and one of our residents get behind on their water bills 5, 6 months. We need to come up with a policy, I believe, to, how they're gonna pay it back when they have a very large bill. We're gonna have to give them, a certain amount of time to pay it back. So I'm just kinda concerned on that, if we could look into that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Again, I just want to thank everybody for all the staff that are doing a tremendous job, and thank you to the citizens that are, adhering to this. I know it's difficult right now, being home and being cooped up, and I know it's been difficult, but I think at Kingsburg, we always work together, and we'll get through this like we always do. So thank you to the council as well for meeting tonight and for your leadership as well. So thank you. And at this time, I will adjourn this special Kingsburg City Council meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Dan,
Thank you.
thank you.
Stay
Take
safe,
care.
everyone.
Has